This is Loose Change, the breaking real bad of local TV. Yeah, we have a really good show for you. Welcome, I'm Jim Evans. We have a great guest, so stick around. You won't want to miss it. Great time of year, isn't it? With football and getting into YSU. Have a lot of fun watching those games. I was talking with someone not long ago about the Michigan State game, and they didn't quite play as we had hoped. But the good news was everyone came out healthy, and they got a real healthy paycheck. $650,000 to play that game at Michigan State. $650,000. You know, that's just about enough money for students to buy 4 textbooks and 2 parking passes. Browns wide receiver Greg Little out on the turnpike recently, and he dropped 2 more easy passes. What's with that guy? He just can't get it together. The Indians got it together, though. Indians in the postseason. Do you believe that? And they did so with the best record in September of anybody in baseball. And it all started at the beginning of the month. I don't know if you heard this or not. One of the players brought a live chicken onto the field prior to a game early in September. Let it roam around out of the field during batting practice. Pretty extreme. Not exactly who you call up from your farm club, but hey, it worked, so they'll go with it. And the Pirates in the postseason as well. How about that? The Bucks finally broke that 20-year skid of sub-500 baseball. And I was thinking, you know, the only other people who could produce that many consecutive bad records, ABBA. Or ABBA. Is it ABBA? You know, we tape this program, and at the time of taping, again, the Pirates are in the postseason, and the Steelers are 0-4. And I'm thinking, you know what? I think the Mayans were off by about 10, 11 months. The world's going to end this year. That's unbelievable. And not long ago, there was an earthquake that originated in Alaska, and it went down the entire west coast. Nothing serious, but it shook things up just enough that 3 more kids spilled out of that octomom. Hey, we're going to shake things up with Jim Campbell, who will join us next. 8 floors. Oh, no, that's me. Jim Campbell joins us next here on Loose Change. Stick with us.
Look for Armstrong local programming to feature our community like no one else. See your friends and neighbors on Armstrong's local channel and on demand. Find program listings online and with TV Guide's on-screen menu. The Mahoning Valley is featured with great shows like Street Scene, Bottom Line Sports, and Kids Corner. And don't miss high school sports coverage only available on Armstrong On Demand and Channel 20. It's another local programming exclusive from Armstrong. One wire, infinite possibilities.
Welcome back to Loose Change. I'm Jim Evans, and I have the privilege to be joined now by a longtime colleague and good friend, a familiar face and voice, sports director, Clear Channel Radio, Jim Campbell. Jim, thanks so much for being on the show.
I think it'll be cool.
It will be, since you're here. That's like old times again, back in front of it for us. But, you know, what we like to do on the show is have folks give us a little rundown of their background, for those who don't know, how you got here to Youngstown, and a little bit about how your career has evolved.
Actually, I wound up in Youngstown because, believe it or not, when I was looking for work, there was work here. And it's a long time ago. Yeah. But I actually joined Channel 27 and WKBN Radio as the first assistant news director. And then a year later, when the legendary Don Gardner retired, I made it clear when the news director said that was coming up that I wanted to throw my hat in the ring. So ever since then, I've been doing sports. I did, you know, the TV gig for, 21 years. Yeah. And when the stations were sold, radio and TV went separate. As you're well aware, the new guys that took over TV had some ideas of their own. And so I hooked up with radio, been there ever since. It's hard to believe that I've been doing just the radio gig for almost as long as I did the TV gig. It's gone fast.
Now you're from Milwaukee, right?
Originally, grew up in and around Milwaukee. Went to high school there, went to a kind of a broadcasting school that was actually operated by the original owner of the Milwaukee Bucks, a guy named Wes Pavlon, and had the good fortune. I worked days, went to school at night, and my instructor was a guy who was semi-retired. He was doing the sign-off booth announcer shift at the NBC affiliate, but he had worked at CBS Radio back in the day. He worked with Arthur Godfrey and all the big timers, so I learned as much from him just from personal experience as I did from the coursework. So it was actually pretty cool. And I got my first job at a little FM radio station about 10 minutes from my back door.
When did you know, or was there a time you said, you know what, I really like to get into sportscasting, or broadcasting just in general?
Actually, very early on, like a lot of kids, a lot of guys anyway, played a lot of games in the backyard by myself, announced them all, and when people would ask me, you know, when you're a kid, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be a ball player. And my dad said one time, you don't want to be a ball player, you want to talk about ball players. And I think that actually planted the seed. I originally thought I wanted to be an architect. Fortunately, that pursuit didn't work out, and Plan B did, I think.
George Costanza tried architecture. Well, that's Art Vandelay, but that's a whole different thing. But you could have gone as him. What was it that you preferred doing sports over TV, because you were a news director position?
Right.
You preferred to do the sports over being involved on the news side?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, before I came to Youngstown, I had worked at the CBS radio TV affiliate in the Quad Cities, Rock Island, Moline, East Moline, Davenport, and had done a little bit of everything there. I was a general assignment reporter, talked my way into doing some TV. I substitute anchored, I did weather, I did weekend sports, I was a photographer when it was film, a processor, an editor, so I got a good foundation there. When I came here, they needed somebody in a hurry. I was qualified, and a year later the opportunity came to do sports full time, and I knew by that time that's really what I wanted to do.
You mentioned about film, and I know early on when you were doing that, it still was film. That was before I came on the scene and went to ENG and that whole thing. But what was that like? You know, you're out on a Friday night getting games and whatever, and having to come back and process film, huh?
Yeah, and the thing with film too was it was expensive. You could only use it one time.
Okay.
So you had to pick and choose. Sometimes you guessed right, sometimes you didn't, because you couldn't go to a ball game and shoot every play.
Right.
It probably would have been cool if today's philosophy had been used then, because now, you know, TV stations go around, they may only shoot 2 or 3 plays at a game and go somewhere else. But so it was a challenge.
Yeah.
You got what you got. Obviously, you had to get back in time to leave enough time, as you say, to process the film. Hope the processor didn't break or somehow or another ruin the processing run, and then in most cases have somebody else edit it. But and you only got one shot. Once it's cut, it's cut.
Yeah. You had the chance to do a lot of unique things on the TV side in sports. What were some that you still embrace and hold dear?
Well, I think taking over for, or I don't want to say taking over for, but replacing somebody like Don Gardner, who had been at WKBN for 40 years, was a daunting challenge. But because I got a chance to work with Don for a year as the news producer before he retired, I got a feel for what was important to people in this market. Okay. So that was really good. I had my ideas of what I wanted to keep, what I wanted to change, and it worked out, using more visuals being one. But, you know, in those days, not every game, in fact, very few games were televised.
Right.
So, as you well know, we used to make regular trips to go do stuff with the Indians and the Pirates and the Browns and whoever else it might be, not to mention all the high school stuff we did. But I think really the most special things are involved getting involved with YSU football and Jim Tressel. We broke some ground there by televising some games early on. I did his coach's show for, I think, 12 of the 15 years that he was here. Did get to cover a couple World Series. You were involved in that as well. And remember when the Indians went to the World Series?
Well, you know, something may be ruined now.
Yeah, you never know.
A while ago.
Yeah, it was. You know, there were the YSU National Championships, certainly. I don't know why, but I had the good fortune, the news director would allow me to travel oftentimes with the YSU basketball teams when they got into the Ohio Valley Conference tournament. And even though it was tape in those days, we didn't have the uplink thing. You'd go, you'd cover the game, you'd find a nearby TV station, edit, and then run it to the nearest airport so it could be back in time to air the next day. So those kinds of things, certainly a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun now doing high school broadcasts.
Still involved with YSU.
And still involved with YSU. Have an independent project that allows me to broadcast the YSU women's games, which has become a lot more fun over the last 2 or 3 years. After a while, meeting big name folks, as you are aware, that luster kind of rubs off. Right. So, getting to meet a Henry Aaron or a Frank Robinson or a Willie Stargell or whoever it might be, after a while, it's just another ball player, and you see their human side, and so. But I would say that the highlights are just the way that actually having the privilege of being involved with so many things that impacted this community and its morale, and being well received over the years. Because I was an outsider, kid wet behind the ears, following a legend, and they could have booted me out of this market in 6 days or 6 weeks or 6 months, and they gave me a shot, and it worked out. I appreciate that.
We have our cleanup hitter out. But what did
I'm going to take the next 2 questions and hit to right.
There you go. Go with the pitch.
Yeah.
What did you like about doing television?
I think once the technology began to move forward, you got into ENG, the video, portable video. Although shooting film was a lot of fun. The only award I've ever won in broadcasting was as a photographer. So, but I liked juggling all those elements and then putting together, in the days we did it, 4.5, 5 minutes of something that was tight. It moved. It had flow. It had, it had energy. I think that was probably the best thing about TV, other than, again, going out to cover games, mixed with the athletes, all the great coaches in the area, fans, whatever it might be.
You mentioned, of course, about starting in radio, as I did. And I've always felt that was a good starting point to get into television, having that experience, doing a lot of things as you did. But just having that on-air experience of radio really helps you at the next level, so to speak, in television.
I think it does. You get familiar with the surroundings a little bit, the technology. You get to build confidence in yourself. Right. After I was hired for my first radio job, I went in to kind of learn the board. I think it was a Saturday afternoon. The guy that hired me was the program director, and he got up during a news break or commercial break at the top of the hour, and he said, "The next half hour is yours. You know how to do the board." And he left the studio, and it was just me. I either did it or I didn't. So, but I think radio is a great way, no matter what area you're in, to start to put that toolbox together. Yep. Absolutely.
What do you like about doing radio now?
I think I like the freedom that it provides, at least in doing what I do. There's still a lot of work in the trenches, having to do some selling and put together a lot of formats and production and all that. But the actual, again, being out there and mixing with coaches and players and fans and getting to, I've always said, doing those games is like pouring the hot fudge on the vanilla ice cream from the rest of the week. You know what I mean? That's the topping. That has always been, I guess since I was 6 or 7, the most fun for me.
You mentioned the fudge on it. Let's forget the show. Let's go get something to eat now.
Okay, I'm all for hot fudge.
What we're going to do though is we'll take a break. You can hang around, right?
I can do that.
Okay, and we've got more to come here with Jim Campbell. It's Loose Change. Stick around.
Enjoy the convenience of home phone service from Armstrong. Armstrong Telephone delivers reliability you can't get with a cell phone. All you're calling is one low monthly price. No confusing rate plan. Your favorite calling features are included. Check out the exclusive online management tools. Set call forwarding, do not disturb, and more. You can even have your voicemail sent to your email. For great savings, bundle television, telephone, and internet. Armstrong. One wire, infinite possibilities.
Welcome back to Loose Change with Jim Campbell. I'm Jim Evans, and of course, we spent some special time at Channel 27. That was special time over there, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, the ratings were, we owned the marketplace. We really did, with, no disrespect meant to the competition.
Right. It was what it was.
But we did. We had, we walked into a great history and a great tradition,
Right.
and worked with great people. As you're well aware, they let us go outside the box. We did some things that other people weren't doing at the time. And, we were able, frankly, to have most of the time a lot of fun doing it. There came a time near the end when, we both moved on, where I think the wrapping became more important than the package. It kind of filtered down from the bigger markets, even to Youngstown, Ohio. And at that point, it probably would not be today. To go back to that wouldn't be as much fun. But we had great times. We were
Great people there we had the opportunity to work with.
Yeah, you're right. You obviously the first one that comes to everybody's mind is Tom Holden,
Right.
who was funny, and he was smart, and he had a history in sports himself.
Yes.
Over the years, but he was a great newsman. This was his hometown. He knew figuratively where all the bodies were buried in those days. That was important. And it allowed him to contribute in a way that he could provide a context for everything, and he was believable. And Walter Cronkite was the most trusted man in America, but Tom Holden was probably the most trusted man in the Mahoning Valley. But over the years, we could start naming names, and obviously we'd be leaving a lot of people out.
Right.
But we got the best people. This was not a learner's market. You didn't come in here no. You came in here, you had to have some experience, and you had to have some credits, and had people, long before we worked there, people left KBN to go to big places, and they were still doing it when we were there. They were headed to Cleveland and Detroit and Pittsburgh and Milwaukee and other places. So it was run by a family that was about integrity. The Williamsons were
True.
Because this was their hometown, and they had been big contributors to, and had been involved deeply in the community. It was important to them what people thought of it. They didn't even want to make a big deal about the ratings, that they were this huge number one. Well, what happens if we're not such a huge number one someday? Then it'll come back to bite us. So that's the kind of people they were. They set the tone. In our end of it, they always said, as long as your facts are straight, run the story. If trouble follows, we're there for you. So it was a great place to work.
And I remember coming there, and that little newsroom that we had originally, and everybody, we were all packed in there. Everyone was professional, but it was a tight-knit group. It was loose, and there was a real camaraderie that I sensed, pretty much immediately.
Yeah, there almost had to be, because as you say, you were compacted in there. If you didn't get along with your neighbor, one of you wasn't going to be around for very long. It was different, and having the good fortune in going out and covering things and having to edit in different places and go to newsrooms around the country, a lot of them were like that, even in bigger markets. And I think that really did help produce a better product, because there was that sense of camaraderie. Somebody had your back, or was literally at your back. And again, the secret is to hire good people. That's what we had, and we took pride in what we did as a group, in addition to individually.
We often hear, change is good, and oftentimes it is. Do you feel the broadcast industry has been and is changing for the better in any way, shape, or form?
Wow, that's loaded. I think there's an upside and a downside to the fact.
They don't get any tougher, so.
They're all tough for me, pal. I think there's an upside and a downside in that maturation process, if you want to call it that. The upside is that because of technology, you can cover just about anything at any time, in any place, do it live, and that's a big plus. The downside is that there is a necessity to fill every minute of every day, and you get a lot of stuff that frankly isn't very good. There are good things going on in media, in television, but there are also some things that are on the other side that are also new and not very appealing.
Out-of-town guy, what was it about Youngstown that it's kept you here as long as you've been?
Couple of things. I mean, when I got the job, I never figured I'd be here for years.
Okay.
But again, a great place to cover sports, first and foremost,
Yes.
because, again, back in the day, we covered our little circle here, and yet we reached out to Cleveland and Pittsburgh,
Right.
and you know, went to Columbus for high school basketball and football, and so that was very appealing. And then obviously you develop personal connections here, which make it, you know, more difficult to pick up stakes. And it became, and I don't want to say comfortable in a bad way, like, yeah, I can mail it in today, I'm comfortable. But just, it became home. You know, I've lived in Youngstown twice as long as I actually lived at home.
Your hometown.
Yeah, so it really is.
And you know, we have our issues here, but boy,
place
you
doesn't?
yeah, exactly, and you can't say enough about the people here, and that's what really makes it unique.
I think that's true. The problem here, like many other places, is the people who live here, a lot of people who live here, don't realize what they have. But you know what? You can go to Cleveland or Pittsburgh or, you know, pick almost any metropolitan area in the country, and there will be people that will complain about their
Yes,
hometown.
right.
They'll find something to complain about. And like you say, and every place has its problems. Youngstown is not unique in that. Right. Some of our problems may be different. But when you get down to the basics, the large majority of people in this community are people that you can be comfortable with and around. They certainly made me feel at home, like you say, as an outsider. And I can't say enough about that, and I can't thank people enough for that.
And you know, you just touched on it a moment ago, and I talk about this a lot with a lot of people about how Youngstown as a media market, especially a sports media market, is so unique. I don't know if there's another area like this around the country, maybe even one other, where we're right in the middle of two major league cities, you know, surrounding what we already have, as you talked about.
Right.
This is a unique scenario.
It is, and the fact that you have, not only was it good for us in the day when we were accessing those venues more, but it creates an energy in the community too, as well, because it is, yeah, because of the geography, it's a little bit more Cleveland oriented than Pittsburgh oriented, but the fact that you have that is tremendous. It really adds what is 99 and 44 100% of the time a really good energy level. People can kid themselves about the Browns, the Steelers, the the Indians, the Pirates, whatever it might be. I do remember a piece of advice that Don Gardner gave me, because he said, kid, I won't do it. I'm sorry.
No, you got to do it.
No, the story is actually with my
to
throat. I probably could do it really well. He said, kid, if both sides are criticizing you, you're doing a good job. And that's actually true, because people have often asked, well, are you a Browns fan or a Steelers fan? If they can't tell, and by the way, I'm neither, as you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't hate them. It's just not what I grew up with. And if you can't tell, that's a good thing.
You mentioned your connection with Youngstown State, and you've been close to the athletic programs down there over the years. What are your feelings about, especially the three majors, the football and both basketball programs? Do you feel they're all three on the right track?
I think so. I think there has been kind of a gradual adjustment, if you will, to the realities of the changing NCAA picture. A lot of people are still absolutely driven by getting into the Mid-American Conference.
Yeah.
That's going to be a hard get without a major investment, much more now than it was back when they tried to get in last.
Is it about athletic budget as far as that's concerned?
Some of it is about budget. Some of it obviously is about people in the MAC who don't want a Youngstown State.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, Akron and Kent would not be well served by having a successful Youngstown State program in their backyard.
You are correct, sir.
And there are some other people in the MAC that just aren't big Youngstown fans. But, Dan Peters, the former men's basketball coach, used to tell other coaches in the league about, well, Youngstown, it's a small blah, 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 blah. And he'd say, wait a minute. Maybe it's Bowling Green or Miami or whoever. He said, do you have 3 network television affiliates in wherever your
That's
school
right.
is? Do you have 2 daily newspapers? What kind of coverage do you get? Do you think if you're even in that day, Cleveland State, you think you're going to be the headline in the paper most of the time on the day after a game? You're going to, and you don't even play football there. But his point was that Youngstown was a big market type media town in a small market atmosphere, and had lots of things going for it that most of the places in the MAC at that time didn't and still don't have.
We're coming down to our final moment or so, but we've been doing some exciting things at Clear Channel in terms of our sports coverage. And,
I hope so.
And I'll tell you what, and I've been pounding our chest about this, blowing our horn that, our Friday night high school football coverage, I mean, we're the only ones that are out there with 3 games on Friday, half-hour pregame, highlights at halftime, scoreboard show, your student athlete of the week, scholar athlete of the week, right? That interview, team of the week, our post-game highlights, and then the Friday football scoreboard show. And a lot of the material, for instance, our team of the week and our players of the game, we have video up on our website. So, not bad for a little radio station. And we're proud of it. We really are. We have tried from day one to produce every broadcast like it was a network broadcast. I mean, there's a lot of inside stuff that would be really boring to put on tape here, but that those broadcasts, be they football or basketball, or when we do tournament baseball and softball, those are tightly formatted. We have listeners that we need to be responsible to. We need to have a good time so they can have a good time, but we also have sponsors and, the schools themselves and the players and the coaches to whom we owe respect. And so it needs to be done cleanly and tightly and yet have fun. When we bring a new guy on board, the 2 things I tell them are, 1, just remember, be professional. 2, have fun. That's right. Well, it's been real fun for me here today,
and
throughout the time that we've worked together, it's been my pleasure, and thank you so much for being on the program.
Let's do another 30 years together. Come on.
Why not? Let's do it. Jim Campbell. We'll be right back against Loose Change.
TV from Armstrong has more possibilities than ever. Armstrong OnDemand has thousands of titles, mostly free with your Television Plus subscription. Demand the latest Hollywood hits, often weeks before they arrive at rental kiosks. Play, pause, and record live TV with the PVR. Our multi-room PVR lets you record hundreds of hours of your favorite shows. And Armstrong HD is the most cost-effective high-definition solution for your home. Armstrong. One wire, infinite possibilities.
Hey, that's it for today's show. Don't forget, if you have a question or a comment you'd like to get on the air, then just email it to us and we'll get it on for you. If not, we'll just make it up. Thanks so much to Jim Campbell and to Greg Roten. And don't forget, I'll be on Sports Wrap on Clear Channel Radio along with Champ Summers, Denny Liebert, Viking Jim, Chris Rice, and Dave Price. Check it out. I'm Jim Evans. We'll catch you next time right here on Loose Change.